Notre Dame's future schedules prove the naysayers wrong about how the Irish are trying to schedule their future playoff opportunities.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 podcasting network. Check it out all across NBA, NFL, college, or anything else. We've got something for you. In today's show, I absolutely do as well. Wanted to go outside the box a little bit, talk about Notre Dame's schedule and how teams in general have to do things a little bit differently than what most fans think. Notre Dame's taken on water from fans all over because everybody either loves or hates Notre Dame. And I'm going to kind of set the record straight. But first, here's an overview of what's going on. I'm going to give and how it works, impact on this. It's not just Notre Dame. Everybody's schedules way in advance. I'm going to do a little quiz for everybody on just how far advanced this kind of stuff works and why it is a crapshoot on how difficult a schedule will be because of when they schedule them. We're also going to talk about how they end up being scheduled within a season. It's not just who you play, but when they play those games that matters so much. And everybody, Notre Dame included, will do certain things to help their schedule, and sometimes it actually backfires. But overall, are they really trying to schedule their way into the playoff or doing it the easy way because they're not in a conference? That is completely false. And I have the stats to back it up. Notre Dame forever has played a national schedule. Going back to their last national title in 1988, they played like 4 teams. They ended up being ranked in the top 10. Here's the irony. Michigan State, Michigan, Miami, West Virginia, Southern Cal. These are some of the teams that they played that were either ranked at the time they played them or at the end of the year that were top 10 that season. They went undefeated. Except for West Virginia, Notre Dame plays those same schools each and every year. They played West Virginia in the national title that year. It's no different. Every team has rivals, some within their conference, some that are independent, whatever, that they just play. And the caveat is obvious. When teams are up that are your rivals, your schedule goes up. And when they're down, well, you guessed it, the schedule goes down. It's just the way it is. So here's the big question. For any of you out there wanting to hammer Notre Dame or Alabama or Michigan or any team during any given year or era, how many years in advance do you think many of these schedules come out? Is it 3 years? 5? Maybe it's 7, maybe it's 10. How many do you think? I want you to think about that for a second. Because again, when you have rivals, it can be quite a bit in advance. Now, I've spoken to different people. They think it's a year or 2. No, it's not even 3. It's not even 5. It's not even 7. It's 10 and more, which personally I think is ridiculous, but that's been going on for a very long time. I don't know who started it. I don't know why. I don't like it, but this isn't a Notre Dame problem. This is a college football problem, which I think we all know. If you're watching this show or if you're listening later on, whatever it may be, there are a lot of issues in college football, and many are pretty dumb, but they continue to happen. I wish you could not schedule any further ahead than 5 years, but I digress. To that end, here's an example with 2026, kind of looking at it for their next schedule. Notre Dame's schedule is pretty weak next year, but it's not because of their effort. Wisconsin, they scheduled this game with the Badgers a long time ago. They're going to play them in Lambeau, up where the Packers play. When this game got scheduled, they were coming off opportunities to go play in the Rose Bowl. They were top 15 every year, yada, yada, yada. They're terrible now. How would you know that? Is it Notre Dame's fault that Wisconsin's fallen off a cliff? What they win this year? 4 games, and they had to do pretty well at the end to get to that. I mean, Wisconsin was brutal. It is what it is. At the same time, they also had scheduled Miami in advance. Now, normally, you would think Miami's going to be good, and it sure looks that way. But they also scheduled Miami 10, 15 years ago for some games, and Miami wasn't nearly as good. They scheduled those games in advance as well. It is random. You do not know how good or bad any given team will be. Michigan State, Notre Dame's played them forever. When they scheduled this series they've got coming up with Michigan State, which begins in 2026, The Spartans were a playoff team. Now they just fired their coach, and that program is in shambles. It's horrific. Lord only knows what's going to happen with that Michigan State team over the next few years. But they're coming to Notre Dame Stadium next year, and they're going to get shellacked. Again, traditional rival. This schedule was put together a long time ago, 10 plus years. It is what it is. Now they have the ACC affiliation. Syracuse next year, they play up in the Dome. Ironically, you've got Angeli as the quarterback. Hopefully, if you're Syracuse. He's also the guy that was at Notre Dame and didn't win the job, so he transferred to Syracuse. He'll want to prove to Notre Dame that he's good, but Achilles injuries are difficult. I hope Steve, who's a great guy, ends up coming back, but that's just one of those games. You don't know what you're getting with Syracuse next year because when he wasn't in the lineup, they were garbage. They couldn't do anything on offense. It's unfortunate. North Carolina next year, Notre Dame plays at UNC. This season was a disaster, but they did improve at least some towards the end of the year. Bill Belichick's first season left much to be desired, but when you first scheduled that, you're thinking that's an upper echelon game in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Okay, are we going to get that next year? Who knows? Like North Carolina, I wouldn't bet one way or the other any amount of money next year. And again, all of this is a microcosm of what it's like to try and schedule. Again, I don't like this 10-year plus stuff out for a lot of these games, but it is what it is. And then Notre Dame has the ongoing dispute with USC for their scheduling for that game next year. It's still not set, but they'll probably end up playing. USC wants the game at the beginning of the season, and Notre Dame does not. That is a battle that's been going on for a long time with teams on who they play and when, not just with Notre Dame. This is across college football. And I'm going to get into that in the next segment. But again, the biggest thing, if you take from this show, it's the scheduling is so far in advance. Even if you were trying to schedule yourself, Notre Dame, Alabama, Wisconsin, Miami, doesn't matter. It's almost impossible to schedule your way into the playoff because you have to play a few teams that are good, but you just don't know more than a year or so out. And on top of that, just look at this year. Penn State, Clemson, Texas, a lot of the teams that we thought were going to be either ranked number one or at least right there near the top didn't even come close. And that is within the season we're talking about. Now try to project that because, again, many of these schedules, Notre Dame and otherwise, they're 10 plus years out on some of the scheduling. Notre Dame has 2 games with Michigan in 2033 and 2034. Those games were set several years ago, over 10 years. Again, I don't know why, but that's the way it is. Is Michigan going to be good in 2033 and 34? I have no clue. Either does Michigan or Notre Dame. You would assume, but that game could end up being a dud. So rivalry games and scheduling in advance makes this stuff almost impossible. And a lot of people are still going to take shots at Notre Dame because they don't like them. They're not in a conference, blah, blah, blah. It really has nothing to do with it. If you want to complain, don't complain at Notre Dame. Complain in general to the powers that be. No team, Notre Dame included, should be able to schedule more than 5 years in advance. And that's probably pushing it. And the reason is very, very simple. Because you cannot project anything. You're going to get some schedules that are super hard. I'm going to show you here in just a second for those of you on YouTube. Like Notre Dame's 2028 to 2031 schedules are bananas, at least on paper. But they could still fall apart too. And it's part of the reason that anybody taking shots at Notre Dame or Bama or anybody else for any scheduling they do out of conference, in conference, like they can only do so much. Ole Miss this year, they had considerably less difficulty going through their slate, but it was handed to them by the SEC. But they still played Georgia on the road. They played Oklahoma on the road. They didn't have the same overall schedule that Alabama did, but they still won what they had on their slate. It is what it is. So anybody wanting to take shots, you can fire away, but it's almost impossible to predict year to year. And anybody saying that any school can just schedule their way into being really good or they avoid teams, they don't know anything. Again, it's not specific to Notre Dame. I just wanted to use them as a barometer, but we'll get into that more next because when you play games during your season, let's say you've got your 12 games set, that's what we're going to talk about next right here on the Portal Podcast. And this is where it gets really fun. Let's talk about that next here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by RF Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And it is something that you can do, or you can get something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction. Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something that you wrap, it's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before you gift it to anyone. So when they plug it in, the memories are already there. There's no apps, nothing difficult, no headaches when you go through the setup, none of that at all, just instant smiles. So whether it's grandparents, parents, newlyweds, a friend, maybe you want to gift it to yourself. You can do whatever you want. Endless uploads, however you want to do it, 30-second videos throughout the Aura app. It's really easy. And let's be honest, pictures last a lifetime. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com and get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver Matte Frames, #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code COLLEGE. The deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. Order yours today and save your opportunity for the holidays. Don't miss out. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions do apply. All right. Thank you once again for checking us out here on the Portal Podcast. I do live shows almost every single day of the week at noon Eastern. This one's a little bit different, but with the playoffs going on and teams talking about they should have been in or this team not because of scheduling, I wanted to address a lot of things. We'll get into BYU, Alabama, different schools. But right now, something that's broader with it that I want to talk about. It is very important. After your 12-game slate is put together, there's this weirdness. We can talk about the conferences for a second, and we can get back into Notre Dame too. You don't know how it's going to go. Let me give you a great example. Miami this year. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. It's not Miami's fault. They have their normal 12 games. They've got their schedule. Florida State's on a big rival. They're lucky. They have Florida State after a bye. But after they play the Noles, they've got another bye. What? What is the ACC doing? Or, I know you're going to be shocked by this. The powers that be in the TV world screwed Miami. Totally screwed Miami. Now, the Canes came out of that pretty good, but why would you get a bye, play one game, and then get another bye? It's because the TV people. This is a problem we're going to see more and more of. They've got to pull back the reins on that, and Notre Dame to a certain degree, even though they're not in a conference, there's a little bit of it. I'll get into that in a second. But this is garbage. No team should play after a bye and then immediately go into another bye. Matter of fact, at minimum, this is the fault of all conference commissioners and everybody involved with the TV networks. It's pathetic. You should play at least 3 games consecutively before your next bye. If you get 2, 3 games, you want the safety of the players. You want the best games on TV. Give them 3 games after their first bye before another bye. That's just one part. Number 2, let's be honest. There isn't a team in America in any way, shape, or form that doesn't schedule a quote unquote, this is an old school term, a directional school or somebody lesser, FCS, in their schedule. The SEC is infamous for it. They oftentimes put a team before they play their rival at the end of the year. Like Mercer played Auburn this year. Pretty good FCS team, honestly. They got a quarterback that's actually in the portal. But the direction that Auburn was going was, let's play somebody week before we play Bama. It's been going on forever. So it's not who you play, it's who you play and when you play them. Going back to Notre Dame, they've always gotten hosed on this, and their schedules are almost always front-loaded because they're not in a conference, and most teams don't want to play Notre Dame in the middle of the season. It's one of the reasons the whole SC Notre Dame thing is kind of iffy. We'll see if that gets worked out or not. But Notre Dame forever would have schedules that would start out like Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, and then one other decent team. They didn't play any MAC schools. They didn't play any FCS schools. Notre Dame was one of the 3 teams, that was last to play an FCS school. The others were USC and UCLA, just for the record. It's not easy if you're Notre Dame to schedule in general, because they do go national and they want to play in all different pockets to satisfy their alumni. And a lot of these different teams, they have difficulty finding games they want because they don't want to leave their base. They don't have his national alumni group or whatever. Everybody has different scheduling problems, but they all find a way to play somebody lesser, whether they want to or not. This again is still the bottom line. As I throw up Notre Dame's 2027 schedule, again, this is a microcosm across college football. This is not a Notre Dame problem. This is across the board. You're going to have a few things that kind of go sideways that you can't predict. So let's look at Notre Dame's 2027 schedule. For those of you on YouTube, it's up on the screen, but they got Wake Forest. They're playing them in Charlotte. They play Auburn at home. They got Georgia Tech. They got Virginia Tech, like James Franklin's there. Georgia Tech just lost Buster Faulkner. They're really good offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. I think he's tremendous. They've got Navy, which they literally prepare for year-round because they play the option. It's awful to go against. They've got to go to Clemson. They've got to go to Michigan State, and they got 4 games yet to be scheduled. Is Notre Dame's schedule great right now? I don't know. It's solid, but we don't know if they're playing USC, and there's 3 more games, even if they play them, to be noted. Michigan State's down. Will they be better? Who knows with the portal? I have no idea what's going on with Clemson. Auburn, you think we're going to get turned around? What about James Franklin and Virginia Tech? This is just over a year from now that we'd be talking about this as the current upcoming slate. And nobody has a clue. They still have 4 games, and it's really, really hard. Now, maybe what the information I have, maybe it's off. Maybe there's a couple more games got scheduled, but like this is what I have. And Notre Dame, that schedule could be really difficult, especially if you add USC, or maybe it's not. Auburn, that could be a really good team. Alex Golesh is a heck of a coach. James Franklin's probably going to win a lot of games at Virginia Tech. Clemson in Death Valley, that's never easy. And while Michigan State is down, it'll be year 2 for Mr. Fitzgerald up there in East Lansing. So many variables. Notre Dame, just like anybody else, it's not easy to schedule, and it's not easy to project how difficult that schedule will be. Although, here's the other thing. I just want to keep bringing this up over and over again. If you look at this schedule for the Irish, a lot of these teams they've played traditionally. They've got a 12-game series. They're starting with Clemson. They've played Michigan State forever. Like they've played them back to the 40s or 50s. I forget what year it was, but it's been decades. And then they've got the ACC gig. It's kind of random. But then you get a little bit further into Notre Dame's schedule, and it starts getting a whole lot different. 2028, they got Texas, Clemson, Miami, Arkansas, Auburn, Pitt, Virginia Tech, just among some of the teams that they have. Now, when they first scheduled this, they didn't know what the ACC slate was going to be, but they had Arkansas, they had Texas. That's 2 teams they don't normally play. They had Auburn, they just added. That schedule could be really daunting. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with USC. That changes things. Will Michigan State or will anybody else that's a traditional rival be on it? It's possible. I just put a few of these on here for those of you looking at YouTube, but that could be really difficult. And it's just not easy to predict. But then you get it to 2029, it keeps getting more difficult, at least on paper. Alabama, Georgia Tech, at Texas, at NC State, at Florida State, at Clemson, at Syracuse, at USF. Like these are really difficult games. I don't know what's going to happen. Like this schedule here has 6 games on the road. I don't think many teams play 6 road games anymore. Hopefully I'm wrong on that for Notre Dame's sake, but like most teams that are Notre Dame stature only play 4 or 5 games on the road. It is what it is. And Notre Dame's travel going across the country is going to be a lot. All the way down to Texas, all the way down to North Carolina, all the way down to Florida, all the way to Clemson, all the way back east to Syracuse, all the way down into Tampa to play USF. That's going to beat you up. So there's a lot of different layers to scheduling with this stuff. Here are a couple other points as well. We talked about the bye weeks. That's part of it. Let me use, I mentioned Ole Miss a little bit ago. Notre Dame or anybody else can be in this boat. When you play a rival, like Ole Miss had Mississippi State the last game of this season, like it is every year, the Egg Bowl. Mississippi State played them tough, and they're not in the same stratosphere as Ole Miss. Everybody in some way, shape, or form is Notre Dame's rival. They all want them to come to their stadium. They know they're going to pack it out. ADs, they're absolutely going to try to schedule Notre Dame. I'll get into the whole freezing Notre Dame thing out. That's comical. That's zero chance that's going to happen. But these teams, they want to beat Notre Dame. Not just the coaches, not just the players, not just fans, just everybody. It makes your year oftentimes. If you're a BC, if you're a Syracuse, if you're anybody, can you imagine how big it would be for Hartline, who just took the USF job, if he beats Notre Dame? That would be year 4 for him. If he wins that game, that might be the ticket for him to get back to the Big Ten. Maybe he replaces Ryan Day at Ohio State. Maybe he ends up taking another job. Maybe somebody else in the South needs a head coach at the P4 level. Whatever it is, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. And then just kind of going on and looking at this, it's not easy for anybody. Look at Alabama's 2028 schedule. They've got Ohio State. By the way, that's great. I love to see these big games. They're fun. Alabama plays Ohio State in 2028. They've got the obvious games within the conference, but here's their slate. They've got Auburn, LSU, and Vandy at home, among others. They've got to go to A&M, to Tennessee, to Georgia, and to Oklahoma State. By the way, that Oak State game, kind of random. But we don't know, like, what is Oklahoma State going to be for Bama? Right now, if you're a Bama fan, you're like, we'll kill them. And you might. But do you really have any idea what Oklahoma State's going to be? That's one of those programs, kind of like Michigan State on Notre Dame. So you have no freaking idea. None. It is almost impossible to predict with some of those quote unquote mid-tier conference teams. It just depends on the quarterback and the coach. It is so hard to figure out. LSU, Auburn, some of these, they're not too difficult. But what about Vanderbilt for Alabama? Diego Pavia is not going to be there, although he might try to be. That's another story. Tennessee, they've been pretty good. We'll see where that goes. Georgia, that's self-explanatory. That's almost a lock to be really hard. And you would think that Lane Kiffin at LSU is going to be good, but are we guaranteeing that Lane Kiffin is going to return the LSU Tigers to glory? It is hard. And by the way, again, Bama is handed the SEC slate, but forever, a lot of SEC fans complained all the time, especially like Auburn and Georgia fans. Why doesn't Bama play harder games? They never play Florida. They never play Georgia. What's the deal with this? They didn't play A&M for a long time, and then they got to the divisions. It's different now. You don't have as much control, but give them credit. In 2028, again, they're playing Ohio State and Oklahoma State out of conference. I respect that quite a bit. And you just keep going on. Look at the schedule right here. These are some of the games that you're looking at. Georgia State, Kentucky, Arkansas, Tulane, LSU, Washington State, at Georgia, at Oklahoma. These are some of the games that Ole Miss played this year. They were considered to be the easiest of slates, what Ole Miss had, the easiest. But you still had to play Kentucky on the road, a team that, for whatever reason, Kiffin has struggled with some. LSU's never easy. And they played the Georgia and Oklahoma games back to back. So it just depends on one's interpretation of difficult schedules. Notre Dame, again, that's the barometer of this show, but it's applied across the board. There is no one easy way to do scheduling and quote unquote schedule to make the play. I've heard so many people say, they're just trying to get in the playoff. Nobody can do that. Even Notre Dame is an independent. Do you really think in any way, shape, or form that people would look at Kentucky and say, well, last year, like they beat Ole Miss at Ole Miss, which is still mind-blowing to me. And they were really close to doing it again this year. And Kentucky was not good. They just fired their coach. It is hard to predict this stuff. When I come back, we'll get into a few more things, but we're going to talk about whether or not you can freeze Notre Dame out. Hint, there is zero chance of that because money is the key to all of this. Whether you like it or not, it runs our lives, and football is no different. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel has the opportunities for you, and NFL Sundays are moving fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel such an exciting event. You're not just watching the game, you are reacting to the game in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting at its best when the games start to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump in at the moment whenever you want. So here's a little hint. Live spreads and money lines will adjust instantly based on the score, whether a player is doing well or not so well. Quarterback gets hot or 2 picks and a half. The lines will adjust. So that makes kind of interesting player props, especially in those games that go down to the wire, whether it's Patrick Mahomes or anybody else. How are you going to look at it in the fourth quarter? You can bet on anything from touchdowns, drive results, totals, scores for a quarter, anything you can imagine with FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the football action all season, FanDuel.com has you covered. Place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst, and this is a little something extra if you want to get in on all the action. Take it to the next level with our Everydayer Club description down below, and it's got a link. All you have to do is click on it. Basically, if you want to go ad-free, you can go that direction, and we have a Discord. Check it out, $5 a month. It's pretty cool. Let's talk about this notion that teams are going to freeze Notre Dame out. I'll get to everybody in the chat here in just a second. Zero chance that's going to happen. What's the number one word in our society? I don't care if you live in Russia, America, Canada, or anywhere else. It's an unfortunate word, but we all know what it is. M-O-N-E-Y. Zero chance that you're going to freeze Notre Dame. Oh, you just don't schedule them. They won't play. Get out of here. Every AD wants Notre Dame on their schedule because of Title IX. That's the awkward words in the AD world. It's true. The Olympic sports don't help. So you have to pay for those. Every AD's number one job, although they don't like to say this, is to balance the budget. You're essentially a CFO, whatever you CEO, however you want to say it. And without games like Notre Dame or Alabama or Texas coming to your stadiums, it's difficult. Notre Dame sells out almost every place they go. On top of that, this is the big thing that a lot of people may not know, but as somebody who's studied it literally, has friends that run bowl committees, etc., here's the bottom line. You know how bowls were traditionally done? Had nothing to do with what was fair. Zero. Who was going to sell out the hotels and the restaurants? And not just the bottom end ones, the high end ones. Notre Dame's going to do that. Again, Texas, Alabama, Ohio State, that's what that's going to be. So the local university, and pick one, wherever you live, everything around your community makes money when Notre Dame comes to town. They're going to schedule Notre Dame. You can hate them. You can cuss them. You can say whatever you want to me. You can leave any comment you want. Notre Dame's going to be on all these future schedules. It's not going to come off because of money. That's number one. Number two, it's a good team to have if you want to get to the playoff, beat one of the best teams in the country. If you don't believe me, go look at Notre Dame's most recent recruiting class. It's the best class they've had since 1990, where they had 5 elite players that were first-round picks, including multiple Hall of Famers. Bryant Young and some guy by the name of Jerome Bettis was in that class for Notre Dame. It's not going to be a situation where Notre Dame's going away. They're going to be in the playoff more often than not. Again, you can love them, hate them, or anywhere in between. Doesn't matter. Teams are going to play Notre Dame. Money's the first part. The second is scheduling. If you have Notre Dame on your slate and you beat them, it's going to help you make the playoff. And then the final one, it's just finishing out the schedule. Something a little different. Your fans are going to like something unique. You want your boosters to go out there that hate Notre Dame. I guarantee you they're more likely to donate to that school if they beat Notre Dame. Well, you can't beat them if you don't schedule them. That's reality as well. Now, I'll jump into the chat, and I'm sure I've got people on both sides of this argument, but I'll give everybody a chance to comment, have a little fun. What's up, Raymond? How you doing, sir? Cole, what's happening, man? What we got here? Go Fighting Irish. Scheduling 101. Let's go. Alex, how you doing, sir? Yeah, give Marcus Freeman a lifetime contract. Amen to that. If you're a Notre Dame fan, I'm sure you would like that. I don't know what Marcus's intents are, but I'm sure Notre Dame fans wouldn't be disappointed. Phantom Golf. People won't be happy unless Notre Dame schedules every team in the top 12 every year. There are a lot of people probably that way, but as they say, what is fan short for? Fanatic. Reality, reason, objectivity, all those things right out the back window. That's the way it goes. Let's see here. We getting Marsh. I have no idea what's going on with the Marsh kid from Michigan State. Payload 27's asking if Notre Dame's going to get. I have no idea. This stuff is really, really crazy. Tommy Guns, what's up, man? How you doing, sir? This guy, Scotty's in there. Notre Dame plays no one. One good teams. Why don't they play in back-to-back schedules? What are you talking about? Plays no one. That's one of the dumbest comments this show has ever seen. And believe me, I have a lot. So playing Texas A&M, Southern Cal, and Miami, they're terrible, right? They play no one. You're a moron. Get this idiot out of here. Nobody saw IU becoming a powerhouse. Glad you brought that up. In 2030 and 2031, Notre Dame plays Indiana. The first one, I believe, is in South Bend. Second one is in Bloomington. When they scheduled that game, do you really think Indiana thought they were going to be on this kind of level, or Notre Dame or anybody else? No. It's the same point that I started the show. I'm going to bring it back to right now. You can't predict more than a year or two, let alone 5-10 years in advance. And some of these schedules, like I talked about with Notre Dame and Michigan, is 10 plus years in advance. It is not a lock that Notre Dame will be good when Michigan plays. Maybe Michigan's really good. That's so far in advance. What's going on right now in Ann Arbor probably isn't going to be a big factor. These things shift violently based on who the head coach is or is not every single year. It's wild. Tommy Guns, gentlemen, how we doing today? How you doing, Tommy? Let's see. Zach Martin, 7152. Who would have thought IU would have been the hardest game in 2031? It could be. I mean, I don't know how long Signetti will be there. Somebody correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. Signetti, 70, 71 years, like he's older. I don't think he's going to be there for a super long time, but he's winning. And as long as he has Shanahan, and is it Hainsey? I forget the guy's name. The other guy that's the coordinator, like those guys are tremendous. He probably doesn't have as much on his plate as you would think, and he gets to pick and choose some of the fun stuff. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Justin Indy Sniper. Nope, Ole Miss had a strength of schedule similar to Notre Dame's this season. Had nothing to do with being in a conference. Like, again, that's a good point. Ole Miss just played the slate the SEC gave them. If Ole Miss played Alabama's schedule, would they be in the playoff? I don't know. Alabama's slate was harder. Give credit to Alabama for going through it, but now they're all beat up, and their quarterback, by the way, is playing crappy. I don't think Alabama's going very far. James Smertz. I don't think IU will keep a schedule. They're already dropping a bunch of easier out-of-conference games. Here's why I'll push back. Indiana has wanted Notre Dame on their schedule for a long time. I know that as an Indiana grad, I would be surprised if that didn't happen, and it would make them look bad. If you're going to recruit at a higher level, you got to schedule at least some out-of-conference games that mean something. And as I noted a little bit ago, Money. You want to sell out? Can you imagine what Bloomington, Indiana will be like in 2031 when the Irish come to Bloomington? I'll be there for that. I guarantee it. But the hotels and everything else, oh my, they will be bananas. So with that being stated, I think that game will stay there. And for college football's sake, I hope it is too. Katie, if scheduling mattered, would any ACC team ever make the playoff? Look at Miami's cupcake schedule in 26. The best high school teams in the country could beat half those teams. Like, I haven't even looked at Miami's schedule. I'll pull it up here just for fun. Maybe there's something to that. I'll read off some of it. By the way, correct me if I'm wrong. It's Miami didn't play a game outside of the state of Florida this season until November, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that, but it was pretty late. That's another part of scheduling. It's pretty wild. They're out of conference games in 2026 for Miami. Central Michigan comes after Florida A&M, and then they play Notre Dame November 7th. I don't know what's going on with all of that, but look, Miami and everybody else, they play teams that they try to get people to go to game. Miami's at a unique disadvantage, ironically. They're in a very big vacation area. Unless they play a big team, they can't get anybody to come to their games. Like, I've covered Miami. It is bizarre. Going to a game sometimes at kickoff, it's half full. It's sad. I don't know what the deal is with all that, but it truly is weird. Let's see. Miami also loads their schedule with barely leaving the state of Florida. Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. It really is something that people need to look at. How much do you travel in your schedule? It's not just who you play, it's when you play them, how much you have to go across the country or not. Florida State and Miami have all been guilty of this in certain time frames in their history, but Florida State's been by far the best. That we, like, Bowden used to go all over the country. UF and Miami, not as much, especially UF. They're the worst of that group. The FCS games shouldn't count. That is from NH9877. That is an interesting topic. Very interesting. Tommy Guns, since we're on scheduling, Brian, should the Army-Navy game be moved? I'm a major proponent of keeping that game, the only one that's played on its own weekend, but should it be week 0? That's interesting. I don't know if somebody can answer me on this chat. This is a great topic. Army Navy has its own special meaning because of the military itself and what men and women do. Do they play that game in part because of the holidays and everything coming up? Do we think that's part of it, kind of a celebration of the season and the military institutions that we have in this country? I'm not sure. I'd be curious to talk to somebody that works in the athletic departments at those institutions. I don't know how that works, but it's possible. Or a week minus one. They could play that. Like if you started the year, that would be cool. This is an interesting. Tommy brings up play Army Navy like August 20th when there's nobody else playing. That would be dope. That'd be a great way to start. I'd have no problem with that at all. Alex, the only people that do that is the Big Ten with their best teams. Alex, I'm not sure what you're referring to if you're talking about all the directional stuff and all that, but I'm not sure what you're referring to. Little Irish Tommy Guns, if Army Navy was played on a warmer day, I would be more apt to go. I'm not built for the cold. Yeah, as I get older, I'm not dealing with that. I'm not going to Philadelphia or Baltimore or something to watch that game. They need to play that game at least once in a while in Charlotte or something. It's at least a little better, but I digress. Now, let's see here. Alan, no conference, no playoffs, no special cases. Based on what? That's just what you like. This is what I'm talking about with regards to fans not having any common sense. That's just dumb. Not everyone is money. Absolutely. It's 14 degrees in Northeast Ohio right now. I was in Indiana this past week visiting family. It was not very fun. No conference title, no conference playoff. At large teams just reward losers. I disagree with that wholeheartedly, Katie. Do you really think Duke deserved to be in the conference championship? No. Duke is not remotely a college football playoff team. I think it's just the opposite. I think it's a series of you can't make every schedule the same, even within conferences. There has to be a lot of subjectivity to it, which adds to problems there too. But Duke lost 5 games. 5. They have no business in. Any team with more than 3 losses should be out of the conference title game, even if they do have a situation where one of those games was a loss out of conference. And you still have to play somebody of note so teams don't just schedule all cupcakes. Like I'm an IU grad, but go look at IU's preseason schedule. Complete joke. Toughest team they played was Old Dominion. The quarterback that's going to the portal from Old Dominion is really good. But they played Indiana State, etc. There's too many ways to get around this stuff. We are 12 right now in Illinois. It was minus 30 wind chill yesterday. Holy cow. Forget that. Tommy, conference championship games without risk are glorified scrimmages. Yep. There is no doubt about that. Justin Indy Sniper, the ACC conference title would have put Duke in the playoffs this season despite not earning a top 12 ranking. That's far more special treatment than Notre Dame getting in for being in the top 2. Look, I think he meant 12. Look, Notre Dame or any conference, but there has to be layers to this. It can't just be automatic conference champions. And all the people that are advertisers want the conference champions. Why? Balance. They want every region of the country represented, where fans just want the best teams. It doesn't work that way. Like most of the best players from the high school ranks are from east of the Mississippi. Then you got Texas and California, the outliers out west with super amounts of talent. It makes it really unbalanced, but it's also why college football is by far the most intriguing sport. 67 degrees in Florida. Yeah, Raymond, I used to live there. That's a pretty interesting place. Cupcake schedule per usual. I don't know who you're talking about or what. You need to be a little more specific. Well, the comments still bitching about scheduling. Little Irish. Look, there are certain fans, no matter what. I mean, I presented facts today. Like Notre Dame plays Michigan State next year, and they're probably going to suck. But when they scheduled the game 10 years ago, Michigan State was coming off playoff run. So, like, everybody has their own opinion, and that's the end of it. Tommy Guns, join the con. Yeah, I know. The way you spelled it it's funny. The idiot brigades out there, they're always hilarious. And by the time we play Michigan, who knows how many more scandals they'll have been in. By the way, what's gone on in Michigan here recently is just bizarre. Like, I'm not a Michigan guy, and I hope Sharon Moore gets taken care of, but that has just been completely wild. It really has. What do we got here? I think he just signed a 7-year extension, but I agree. Who are we talking about? 7-year extension for who? Big Ten always complains about their traveling now, but Notre Dame still doesn't get credit for the difficulty of their traveling. This is something Notre Dame's done forever. They're the original team when they scheduled USC, go out to see Howard Jones and the Trojans, 1925, I believe it was, first game. Whatever the case may be, it's 100 years of that. Notre Dame will play in New York, and then the next weekend go to LA to play Southern Cal. That does matter because it takes its toll on your body. Just an indie sniper. Most other programs would crumble if they tried to remain independent. They don't have the funding and infrastructure to do it. That is also true. It takes a lot of money. If you compare any ACC team schedule with Notre Dame's, you'd find that Notre Dame's are typically far more difficult and grueling. And then you throw how much they travel on top of that, the haters have no clue. Look, the scheduling part with the travel is something that needs to be looked at. Again, like Miami, they didn't play a terrible schedule this year, but they didn't hardly leave the state of Florida. That's a problem. Could Notre Dame lead the ACC, non-football to the Big East, cut a 5-game deal with the SEC, and people would still complain about their schedule? Notre Dame could schedule all SEC teams in the upper half and then play Miami, USC, Michigan, Texas, and Ohio State for the other games, and people complain because people hate Notre Dame. That's probably the biggest concern here. Georgia Peach 87. Hey, thank you very much. Hit the like, help him out. One of the best on YouTube. Truly appreciate that. Thank you very much, Georgia Peach. Absolutely love that. Let's see. Tommy Guns. I'd love to see Notre Dame rotate through the P4 conferences once just so that they can play and win most of the conference championship games. Like the only one that I would ever worry about would be playing Georgia or Ohio State in those games. It's not about conferences. It's about the elite teams at the top. The 4 best programs in college football right now are Oregon, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Georgia. Why? They've got elite head coaches that also like recruiting. Notre Dame would do well in any conference right now. It wouldn't even matter. Let's see here. First college game of the year being Army-Navy would be pretty sick. I agree. I think that'd be kind of fun. Have they ever done that? Or has it always been at the end? I assume it's the latter. Let's see. Brian was talking about the Big Ten scheduling easier slates for the best teams. It's true. Like they always say that they want to play the local schools and all that. So they play the MAC teams like Michigan or Michigan State play Eastern, Central, and Western Michigan. And they'll throw in a Miami of Ohio or throw in a Toledo or whatever. That's not very difficult though. And it's just very easy to do it that way and get around it. No worries, man. Sorry for the confusion. No worries. Let's see what we got here. ACC should fire Jimmy for the BS that happened for the tiebreaker. Let's take Notre Dame out of this for a second. The tiebreaker stuff with the ACC is just dumb. Simple rule here, and it's not ACC related. It's across the board. Any conference championship game, you cannot have anybody in it with 5 losses. Let's start there. How about nobody with 4 losses? Doesn't work that way. Because if you win, it creates the problem that we had this year. How not a single league doesn't have that in their bylaws is beyond me. And again, as the caveat, you can't just, we're just going to schedule nobody. If you schedule nobody and you're out of conference, that's the first tiebreaker. Like I'm an Indiana grad. But I'm going to tell you right now, like if Indiana ties next year and I don't know, but they have 2 losses and somebody else has 2 losses and they didn't play out of conference. If you play a bunch of nobodies to try to save your players and get the younger guys experienced, okay, that's your prerogative, then you don't get to go in on the tiebreaker. It's ridiculous. Let's see. Katie, when you lose to 2 unranked teams in 3 weeks, don't make your conference title game. You don't deserve to be in the play. Talking about Miami, there's truth in that. Miami is one of the weirdest programs in the world. I have no idea what the deal is with them. Let's see. I saw this is KO. I saw the 26 slate from Notre Dame, and it sucks. I am saying this as a Notre Dame fan. Let's talk about that for a second. Notre Dame's, I think I've got, let me find it again here. Notre Dame slate, like, it's not intentional, but it is really weak. Notre Dame's 26 schedule is very easy to look at and just say there's no reason for them not to go 11-1 or 12-0. There's just no way. Let's see, 26. This is how I'm just going to read them in order. They've got Wisconsin, who they scheduled way in advance. Another one of those games you thought they were going to be good. It's at Lambeau. Home against Rice. Michigan State sucks. Another home game. Purdue, they're improved, but they're not good enough to beat Notre Dame. On the road. At Carolina on October 3rd. That one's a little iffy. Who knows what Carolina's going to do? They got a ton of NIL, but are you going to bet on Bill Belichick's crew? Navy, they play that game in Foxborough where the Patriots play. Then they've got Miami November 7th at home. They've got Boston College at home, and they still got to get the dates for SMU, Stanford, at Syracuse, and probably against Southern Cal. That Southern Cal game will probably move something else around. We'll see. But bottom line, Notre Dame schedule, it leaves a lot to be desired, at least on paper. If USC ends up being USC, okay, that's one. SMU, that could be a situation they're good. Miami, that's kind of self-explanatory. But nobody else looks to be good because rivals like Boston College is down. They don't have they got Stanford. They're down too. Will the quarterback, former Notre Dame quarterback, ironically, be back for Syracuse? And what's going to happen with him? Like, there's so many things with Notre Dame's schedule in 26. It's wild. But again, 27, 8, 9, all the way up through early 2030s, it's hard. We'll see how it goes, but at least it is on paper. Let's see here. But putting conference champions into playoffs automatically isn't the answer. That's true too. It is true too. A lot of these conference champions, it's kind of wild. Tommy Guns, Michigan probably needs to bite the bullet, clean house. Football ranks and starts fresh in 27. They're the definition of a lack of institutional control. I don't know if it's how you penalize. They're not going to do it anyway because the advertisers want Michigan's money coming in because they got so many viewers. Let's cut to that with the NCAA being toothless. To that end, I don't know how many people failed on this, but I thought it was odd when they fired or when Harbaugh left and they brought in Moore to be the head coach. Like, he was a part of that scandal. Why would you hire him? That made no sense to me. No experience, taking over for a team that won its title is, and to me, it's not a title, but that's another story. They cheated like crazy, but whatever. Let's see. No way to know what teams are going to look like many years out. Notre Dame will be fine. Fat Jack 33, 100%. Irish Gordian Knot, with how volatile some of these teams are, part of me thinks 26 schedule will end up being way tougher than we think. It very well could be. Boston College will have a quarterback back. You're going to have a situation with Stanford. They can't be worse. And on down the line, the quarterback at SMU, he'll be a third-year starter. USC will have a fifth-year senior starter at quarterback. They could have 3 or 4 games against top 15 teams, or they could have like one. It is very, very difficult to predict year to year how it's going to go. With that, I thank everybody very much. Just wanted to prove the point, like, scheduling is wild. There's no way to predict year to year what's going to be on your slate, as difficult as hard. One guy gets hurt, again, look at Syracuse. Steve Angeli, the quarterback, tears his not his ACL, but his Achilles. Their season goes up in smoke. It is very hard to predict that. And no, Notre Dame does not schedule in a manner to get themselves into playoff or taking it the easy route because they're not in a conference. The moron brigade, they can just continue to be the moron brigade. So with that, thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate it. I'm going to be doing live shows throughout the week. Going to have some fun with it, talking about a lot of teams in the SEC this week because their schedule came out. I'm going to talk about them. Just did a show on Auburn. It's really good. I had Zach Blackerby on from Locked On Auburn. Going to talk Tennessee. We're going to talk about LSU. And because DJ Lagway is now announced for the portal, that's going to be a show I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to set it up. It'll be up live in the morning as well. There's so many different things going on in college football with the portal. Make sure you check it out. Like and subscribe right here to the Portal Podcast. We will see you again very, very soon.